We gather our strength at the break of day, from old maple flags that wave so high to the freedom we taste beneath the...
This is Bryson Gray, and you are watching The Patriots Prayer
on the Patriots Prayer Network. Thank you all.
The American mom, she's tough and proud. She raises her kids, she speaks out loud on a mission for truth. She stands her ground, her love for this land, it knows no bounds. Let's stand together in the heartland's call, with the flag flying high. Let's give it our all, from sea to shining sea. We'll carry the fight in the land of the brave, where our hearts ignite. Fundner's voice, we heed the word, an anthem of might, it's clear and heard, a crusade for...
Well, thank you for joining us today on the American Mom podcast. I'm Ann Fundner. This is my brand new podcast on the Patriot Prayer Network, and I'm really excited to be here. I have for media for a very long time. I haven't really been active in it in the past couple of years since of what I've been through. A mom, I had lost a son to the border crisis, and I spoke about it at the RNC. I'll be talking a lot about that, a lot about kids, and a lot about fentanyl and border issues. But to jump right in, today I have April Babcock with us. She is of fentanyl. She was one of the first people who helped me through my loss of my son. And we're just going to talk today about April, find out her story and a little bit about what she's doing. She is an activist, crusader, and she is a dynamic person. She's fighting for your children. She is fighting for everybody in this country, as parents, as children, and she's had a group, one of the largest groups of support and advocacy and activism for fentanyl awareness on Facebook, called Voices of Fentanyl. I've had the pleasure of moderating and being a part of. So without further ado, thank you for joining us, April.
Thanks for having me, Ann. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, April, you have grown to over 34,000 just since I've been in this fight. When I lost my son and he was just 15, I joined your. So what made you get started in this fight?
Well, I lost my son January of 2019. And after my son Austin died, I didn't run out the gate fighting fentanyl. I wasn't an activist right away. I actually, I took time for I wanted to die, Ann. You remember after Weston died, you just want to die. It doesn't matter if you have other living children. You have one that's gone. Your living children can never replace the child that you lost. So, I was doing everything I can to keep above water. For me, that was God. So after my son died, I wasn't active in a church when he passed away. So I started church hopping. The fourth church I went to, I felt like that was the church for me. And so I sticked with that church. I went up to the altar every Sunday to be prayed over. Like I tell people, you have to put it at the foot of the cross, because this is too much for a parent. It's too big of a burden to bear on your own. And honestly, without God, without Jesus, I don't know how anybody survives, honestly. I just don't. And I know why parents commit suicide, because I think it was in 2021, there were 7 moms that mingled in these groups. So I was one of the groups. And then there's other groups like mine and grief support groups. So we all kind of know each other, but 7 mothers that year committed suicide. It's just heartbreaking. I try to tell, and you know, Ann, you know, death of a
Yes.
child, debilitating.
Yep.
But honestly, so I prayed, I went to church, I went to Israel for 2 weeks to be closer to God on my son's 1-year angel anniversary. So, and then, you know, after I got back from Israel, you know, I kept praying, God, like I knew I wanted to do something with my grief. I just didn't know what to do. So I just prayed and prayed and prayed until one day it just came to me. And, you know, what came to me was I do kind of have a big mouth. And God said, you have it. And before my son died, my big mouth got me in kind of trouble. And you know, I never really used it for a purpose, for something good. So, you know, now I do. So the first thing I did, actually 3 years today, well, yeah, 3 years today, I had my first rally in front of the Chinese embassy. Actually, it was the day after the Afghanistan bombing was my first big event in Washington, D.C. at the Chinese embassy. So that's kind of how I started. And I started my group, Lost Voice of Fentanyl. And it really wasn't a group to just be a group. It really was because I was going to Washington, D.C. I was going to rally in front of the Chinese embassy. So I had to give it a name. And that's how I came up with Lost Voice of Fentanyl. And then after that event was over, like I knew in my heart I was going to go and continue to go back to DC every year. So obviously I wasn't just going to get rid of my group. So, you know, the group since then it grows. And you were just at the 4th annual rally on July 13th. Go figure, the day someone tries to kill President Trump.
Yep.
I mean, unbelievable. It seems like every year there's something major that screws up our coverage. But, you know, you were there. You saw we had a lot of coverage. We had NBC cover it the whole day. We had Fox cover it the whole day. I was supposed to be on Fox and Friends the following morning, but since someone tried to assassinate Trump, like I said, every year it seems like something happens. But so, you know, that's how my group started, was the rally in front of the Chinese embassy. But every year we go back every year.
Yep.
You know, we want to see change. And under the current administration, honestly, we have seen no change. The change we have seen has been horrific because the numbers continue to increase every year of these fentanyl deaths. And, you know, I know this administration, the last I heard, they were touting a 3% decrease in the number of deaths. And I'm like,
yeah, no.
How can you tout about a 3% decrease? That is not a braggable number. I mean, so there's
it's not even a true number. And I think that's the biggest thing, because we see more people in these groups now more than ever. It's not a true number. They're not reporting it.
I mean,
I don't really bad.
But
no,
what I'm saying, there was a 3% decrease. We know it's only because of Narcan, and Narcan is just a Band-Aid. It's not the fix it for this crisis. Something, we need real change. And the real change,
absolutely,
real change, that's actually, we're going to see the death toll decline. Until then, there is no real change. Like, I know there's been tons of bills. Well, I don't want to say tons, but there's been bills that pass, but I don't know what any of them really accomplish. Like, I know this administration,
you know,
they're talking about
there's been very weak bills.
Bills. And they're talking about the 8 Chinese people running a manufacturing company or something. 8 Chinese people were indicted. Big deal. Do you know how many
out of how many
in China that are making precursor chemicals? Over 150,000. So when you're indicting 8 people, that's a joke and it's a slap in my face. And it's funny how they're doing it right before a presidential election.
Absolutely. Now that's the thing. The one national actually passed. It doesn't do anything for catching, you know, our borders, because it put machines at the ports of entry. And last I checked, drug dealers don't go through the ports of entry. It also put security at the ports of entry. The money spent was put at the ports of entry. It didn't do anything for illegal border crossings. Those machines were also already there, and they were taken out by administration only to be added back, but new ones. So this fentanyl bill was just, other than giving a lot of money to the Ukraine, it all did was put secondary precautions. That's not going to really stop fentanyl. Now, there's always going to be, some idiot who comes through the border all in their trunk. But most of the people that are bringing fentanyl over are very well disguised. They're very well, they know how to do this. They come over entry points. They don't come through the ports of entry. So that border bill, I'm sorry, the fentanyl bill and the border bill, that we can talk about the border bill too, but really
but they
didn't do anything.
They have to do more than focus on the border, though. They have to close de minimis, and they have to go China, really do something, sanction them, cut off their money, and label the cartels terrorists. And I think Trump is actually going to do that, because when Tom Homan spoke at the RNC, he said, I don't think Tom Homan's going to say that if Trump isn't going to get that done. And I believe Trump won that last time. I think he thought he had another 4 years to get things done, and he just didn't have that. So, we got to hold his feet to the fire too. And believe me, we will hold his feet to the fire. Like, you can't just secure the border and think fentanyl is going to stop, because even with the secure border, the cartels will still get it in here. Label them terrorists. Yeah. Kill them. Let God sort them out. That's not our problem.
They need to be
a terrorist organization. If you look at what we did after 9/11, and that was 3,000 people. We're losing over 100,000 people a year. This is astronomical numbers, and it's a lowball number. They have to do something
more. And I do believe President Trump will do it. And he was starting to have conversations with Xi, and conversations about, shutting and everything like that. Biden never came in and did anything with those conversations. But I do believe that he will absolutely do a lot to stop. He will go after the cartels, because they need to be obliterated. Send in SEAL teams.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, but it just can't be the cartels. Like, I kind of get a little upset when I don't hear what he's going to do about China's role in the fentanyl crisis, because they are the head of the snake. I say China killed my kid. China did kill my kid.
I think it's amazing that you did go in front of the Chinese embassy, and I have heard President, but we would like to hear that more, because, like you said, this really isn't just a Mexico issue, and there is de minimis. It is coming over. Why don't you tell everyone what de minimis is? That is crazy. It's
coming in the mail. Like, so that's another thing I would like to stress Trump to talk about, de minimis, like securing the border. I'm all for that, but it's not going to stop fentanyl. It's not going to stop the cartels, and it's not going to stop China. So we have to do way more than that.
We do. So how do you feel right now, knowing that you have marched on DC 4 times now? I was at the last 2, and with anger, and we're watching, people go into the White House that are invited in. And I remember you made a video and you said, invite us, Aslan. And you repeated it, and it was a really powerful moment. And now, what's that? Oh.
I'm sorry, my phone keeps ringing. It's driving me crazy.
Don't worry.
Sorry.
And now we hear that after all these times of us going in with total ignorance and acknowledge that we were there, they did send out their guards once who laughed at us. But now, less than 3 months to the suddenly decide that they want to invite a fentanyl group. I think my son's name will be in there, and a fentanyl group.
I didn't hear that. They're inviting a fentanyl group. I think you're wrong.
They're inviting families in, and
they invited. They invited. It's for Overdose Awareness Day, and they invited 50 families last year, and Biden didn't even show up. The ONDCP invited them. Okay. And the president didn't even come in and say condolences. They got nothing from the president. You know what we want? We want to be invited on the White House lawn. That's what we want. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. The Biden-Harris administration on Gay Pride Day invited LGBTQ on the White House lawn. And transvestites, actually, there were several that were showing their titties. That's a slap in my face.
Yeah.
Why have the bereaved families been invited on the White House lawn?
I don't.
Okay, that's
but I
what,
will. That's what we do need, and I do believe that with President Trump we will get that. But you know, it's a constant fight. But everything that you're doing, April, I'm going to have you on, more often than not, because you really are a wealth of information on this, subject, and you teach us all. That's what we look to you. You have a huge group online, and honestly, there's so many people that are so grateful for everything that you've been, such a light in this fight, and you've had, strong faith when a lot of us haven't. I know I personally stumbled and fell for a while because I just couldn't imagine why God would take away my son. But I've come back to it, and a lot of it is through just seeing people like you and your faith and how strong you've been in your faith, and it's very encouraging. So I'd like to have you back to talk more, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing. But why don't you give yourself a plug, and let's talk about what your group and everything that you're doing.
well, oh my gosh, we do a lot of stuff, Ann. You're putting me on the spot. I'm sorry, I'm not ready for this interview. So, we testify on bills. We support other families. Like, if there's a bill coming up in a state, because we have people from every state in our group, so we can all kind of give each other advice, encourage people. And like before my son died, when I'm learning about testifying on bills, they don't make it easy for you to testify. Like, you got to go through all sorts of crap. At least in the state of Maryland, you do. So, this is a way for us to encourage other family members and share bills. So if you don't have a certain bill in your state, you can piggyback off of another state. We share what other groups are doing. Ann, you're a moderator. You can talk about LVOF.
I will be talking about it a lot, but you can find LVOF if you know someone who has struggled with, and who, unfortunately, if you know people who have passed from fentanyl, there is a support group out there, Lost Voices of Fentanyl. We are activists. We support you, and when you don't know how to pick up the pieces, when your life is just shattered all over the place. LVOF. You can also donate. There's merchandise. April needs all the help she can get. Skip your Starbucks latte and help them. So, thank you so much for joining us, April, today.
Well, thanks for having me. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
About overdose. So, like today, I turned down a flyer in the group. Somebody wanted to post about their overdose event, and the main thing we focus on, like every year when we go to the White House, one of our chances, overdose is not the word. Poisoning, we will be heard. We are trying so hard to have the general public understand this is not an overdose. An overdose means there's a safe dose. You take too much of that safe dose and it causes death or harm. So, and when you're being literally deceived, like my son bought cocaine, but then he dropped dead from fentanyl. Anytime a person disguises a harmful substance in anything for another person to consume without their knowledge, and it causes death or harm, that is the very definition of a poisoning. And even if your child was seeking illicit fentanyl, there still is zero safe dose to take. It's a poison to your body. Honestly, all illicit drugs. I think from the beginning of time, the general public screwed that one up. When someone dies from alcohol, they call it alcohol poisoning. So when someone dies from heroin, it should be called heroin poisoning. There is zero safe dose of heroin. And that's why Lost Voice of Fentanyl, we support drug-induced homicide. And that's Terry Almanza. She started the Drug-Induced Homicide Foundation, and we 100% back her up. We want to buy our drug dealers getting away with murder. Because they are.
Yep. They absolutely are. Well, thank you so much, April. Hold on. We're going to go to a quick break.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
And we are back. April is really an incredible woman. I don't know if I would have gotten through, all of my days. So with my story is I lost my son who's behind me. His name is Weston. And Weston was poisoned, not overdose. He was poisoned by fentanyl. He was a good kid. He was an amazing kid. He taught me what love was. I don't know that I ever understood the meaning of love until I met Weston. He's my firstborn son. And if you're a mother, your kids are your everything. And, I just raised him with the best future possible. And, I made sure that he had, sports and great friends and church. And we went to church on Wednesday nights too for youth group. And we went to Christian school and everything that you could possibly do to make sure your son was set up for success. You get him braces, so they have a great smile, so one day they'll get a great job. And, we had such high hopes for him, and he was just loving and sweet, and he had so many friends. And, fentanyl still found him, and I talk about that a lot because you can really do everything right as a parent, and fentanyl still will, find its way into, groups of friends. And if they're all having fun and it all looks like fun and you want to be friends with certain kids, kids experiment. The difference today is you can't experiment and, expect to survive, where back in our day, kids do stupid things. They just do. Kids don't change. It's just part of their, teenagers are teenagers and they do what they do. And so they experiment and they make bad decisions. It's part of being a teenager. If my son had just taken a Percocet, he would still be alive. But he didn't take Percocet. There was no Percocet in what he took. And this is what April was saying, when it's not an overdose, it's a poisoning. And so we don't call it an overdose. There's no way to open up a pharmaceutical pill and stick fentanyl in it and put it back together. So these pills are literally made with blue press powder that you can buy off of Amazon. And you used to be able to buy the pill presses off of Amazon with all the imprints and everything that you can customize at your home. They stopped selling those, but because people do press their own pills for other reasons, they still sell the blue powder on Amazon, and their drug dealers take it and they sprinkle fentanyl in the blue pill powder, and they stamp an M on it and a 30 on the other side, and now you got yourself a Percocet. And they sell it to these kids thinking that they're taking a pain pill from their parents' medicine cabinet, and there's no medicine in it whatsoever. Illicit fentanyl is not the same as pharmaceutical fentanyl. Illicit fentanyl is not chemically the same. The precursors are made in China, shipped over to Mexico to the cartels. Some probably drug addict themselves is sprinkling into a bunch of powder, pressing these pills, putting it together. And when you see these drug busts of all these little blue pills, that's what's coming over. So, it's a tragedy that this administration has done nothing, and I mean nothing, about whatsoever. So that's my story. That's my backstory, and it's unfortunate because this is the story of 300,000 parents right now under this administration alone, and that's not even including this year's numbers. So 300,000 1,000 parents have lost children in the past 3 years under this administration from this epidemic, and there is no COVID response. Nobody's doing anything, and it just doesn't make any sense. You know, I lived in California, and every single fentanyl bill was unanimously voted down by Democrats only. Republicans always voted it. You know, it's 80% supermajority in California, or close to it, and every time they had a fentanyl bill come up, 100% of the Democrats would vote it down. Why is that? And I believe it's because the cartels are running the elections. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation allowed to operate on American soil. And when I say they're allowed, it's because we're not doing anything about it. We're not going, and we're not treating it like a terrorist organization. Bin Laden took down the World Trade Centers, and close to 3,000 people died, and we went to war. Yet there's 300,000 children. People's children are dead, and we are doing nothing. We're doing nothing. So we're going to take a quick break again, and I'm going to come back, and I have someone coming on to talk about school issues that affect your children at school, at public schools. So we'll be right back. Thank you for coming back. So this is my bestie of 32 years, right? This is my best friend. Her name is Selena. Selena is a patriot. She's just an amazing, amazing woman. And Selena she fights in the school system. She goes to the school board meeting. She ran for school board. And yep, she is just a fighter. So how you doing, Selena?
I'm doing great. I had a little bit of trouble logging on to this stream, but it's all good. I got on, thank goodness. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I couldn't think of any. I wanted to bring my favorite people on my first show, and Selena is obviously my best friend. She's such a great patriot too. She's always out there, you know, fighting for our children. So tell me, what is going on in New Jersey with all these wacky Governor Murphy crazy talk and the things that he's trying to push through that takes parents' rights away?
Yeah, it's really crazy. There's so much going on, and it started with the pandemic, and then it's just snowballed since then. But we're out there fighting, and it's heartbreaking that there's not a lot more parents that are that got game in what we're fighting for. And right now, the big hot topic is the transgender student bill, the New Jersey 5756. And while in March it was repealed and it voted 5-4, it has since, there's a lot of discussion of them now wanting to take it back. And they're saying that it's such a liability for the LGBTQ community. But, there are laws in place right now that really do protect the LGBTQ students. And it's the New Jersey LAD. So
what is that?
New Jersey Law Association District. I can't remember exactly, but yeah. But they have to follow what's under the federal and state laws, so they are protected.
Absolutely, they're protected, and there's a lot of you have gays for groomers. I mean, gays against groomers. Gosh, not horrible. You have gays for groomers too, but you have gays against groomers. So they are out there saying this is not what we stand for. We don't want kids not to be able to have conversations with their parents, or teachers to be in charge of helping children along this journey without their parents knowing. So there are a lot of, like you said, protections, and a lot of organizations of people that are helping. There are a lot of people in the gay community that are very outraged by this. They don't like this. It gives them a bad name.
it's so over, it's government overreach, but at this point we are now becoming, if we don't stop and parents don't get involved, we're going to be as radical as California and the bill that, Governor Newsom signed in the 1955 that basically says the school districts do not have to let parents know if their kids want to, transition or if they want to go by a different pronoun. I mean, I can't even imagine if parents don't wake up and understand that this is we have to fight for our children, because who else is going to be fighting for them?
Yeah, absolutely, we do. And that's what you're doing. So
Yes.
recently, 5750, what is it? 5754, 55,
5756.
5756, 5756. Okay.
Yep.
So recently 5756 was pulled back, but certain school districts are passing it anyway, even though it was pulled back, hoping that they're not going to get caught or that someone's not going to have the money to pay for the lawsuit, right? So they're trying to shove it through, even though parents and it's been voted down and parents are out there outraged. So what do you see happening with that?
Well, that's a great segue into, our own school district, Wanacue School District. We have been faithfully every meeting we've been attending, and they actually happened to slide it under the radar. They said there was going to be no talk of it. We were supposed to get a first reading. Then they went back and they said that they were going to revise it. Then they said at our July meeting that they weren't even going to talk about it. And I just went to the Board of Ed meeting last Tuesday and they passed it. So we
That's
all
horrible.
kind of were sitting there with like mud in our face, and that's against the Sunshine Law Act as well. So I do have a letter sent, getting ready to knock on their door again, because the squeaky wheel gets things moving. So we'll see what comes of it. But they're definitely using the attorney that they've been assigned to, and they just keep deflecting and going back to him. So,
well, there are a lot of mom organizations. I know that we're part of one, but I don't know that we can talk about that. But that we are part of that actually will also go and fight this. So we're hoping that those are enacted. But what about Title IX? Just in the Supreme Court, just got a 5-4 voted down. So what do you see? What's going on with that? What's the future of Title IX, which was originally supposed to be protecting girls, and now it's intrusive upon things that could happen to girls in their own locker rooms. So why don't you talk about that and tell everyone what it's all about?
Well, sure. It came out in 1972 and Congress passed this, and it was an educational amendment that ensured women, girls of their rights, equal rights, as well as at the athletic sports realm. But fast forward about 1,500 pages of unconstitutional regulations, because that's exactly what it is. The DOE has redefined that. And so now you've got female students that now have to either partake in having to go against males. They have to uncomfortably go in and if they're in the showers, they have to be involved in that now. So there's just so many repercussions that the female now, when we strive so hard to get where we are today, now it's like we've gone backwards. I can say one thing about our organization, even though we can't say the name. I can say that hopefully the Supreme Court will knock this completely off and we won't have to take this any further, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. So it's interesting that you talked about, California and its crazy laws. I lived in California. I see the way that New Jersey's fighting. I don't see a huge difference. I know there are some things, in California, even private schools, had vaccine, you had to get through the vaccine regulations. Even in private schools, you couldn't have doctors sign off. Any doctors that signed off on, vaccines were getting their medical licenses revoked or suspended for a period of time. We were grandfathered in, but one of the reasons we left is because I have my preference on vaccinating my children, and I was only grandfathered through 7th grade for my kids, and the one that was not in school originally when this passed. He only had till kindergarten, so it was time for us to jump. But you see parents there signing their own vaccine cards with their doctor's signatures, making stamps and having them sent to their house so they could stamp their vaccine cards. I mean, the people are trying so hard to get away with government overreach in schools, and in California, it trickles into private schools, and now they're trying to do it in homeschools.
Oh yes, that is
parents rights that away.
They are definitely knocking on the door for that, and it's really unfortunate because, again, we have to parents need to really understand that even though they feel like it's not affecting them, because let's say that their kids are grown, your kids are gonna have children or your grandchildren one day, and at the end of the day, this is complete and total overreach of the government. We don't need to co-parent with our children. We know what's best.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. And we'll see if we can get you to do that. This year's kind of passed, but maybe the next one.
Yeah.
You're such a strong fighter. My bestie,
Thanks.
my girl, my Selena.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on. So we'll have you back for sure, but it's an honor to have you on my first show. So thank you.
Thanks. Good luck.
All right, my dear.
We'd gather our strength at the break of day, from old maple flags that wave so high to the freedom we taste beneath the...
This is Bryson Gray, and you are watching the Patriots Prayer
on the Patriots Prayer Network. Thank you all.
The American mom, she's tough and proud. She raises her kids, she speaks out loud, on a mission for truth. She stands her ground, her love for this land, it knows no bounds. Let's stand together in the heartland's call, with the flag flying high. Let's give it our all, from sea to shining sea. We'll carry the fight in the land of the brave, where our hearts ignite. Fundner's voice, we heed the word, an anthem of might. It's clear and heard, a crusade for...
So we are back. I am hoping that my next guest will be logging on shortly. Thing to hear about the school systems and what's happening. I mean, this government is really, I just can't find anything that this administration, why are we even allowing this? And what boggles my mind, people pouring over the border, basically illegal immigrants illegally coming over. It's probably more like 20 or 25 million. But it boggles my mind. People getting their tables right now, but they're like, oh, but we're going to vote for Kamala. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why would motivate you to vote for someone that is destroying? Well, I shouldn't even say destroy, doing nothing. She's doing nothing, but God forbid, with she's more crazy than Bernie Sanders. I lived in California. She is extremely, socialist, pushing a very socialist agenda. There's nothing, she doesn't even have a platform, but people are like, oh, I'm going to vote for Kamala. And they'll argue it because the media every single night is telling them, like, you need to vote. Trump is bad and Kamala's great. And so you have this whole army of brainwashed, I don't even know what to say about them. Just saying, oh, vote for Kamala. But I do think that the numbers in the polls are extremely skewed. I have been following Polymarket. It's one of the only polls that I'll trust, and it's because it actually follows um, the odds trends, what the odds are from gambling. And I'm not a gambler, and I don't believe in gambling. However, the gambling companies have never been wrong, and Polymarket goes by the right now. They have their money on Donald Trump, and now with RFK, and it also has to do with bitcoins and some of that whole investment industry, which I'm still trying to learn that whole market. But is one of the only ones that I believe that you can actually trust, and so that's the only poll that I will follow. But the fact that high up in the polls, people are like using it. It's like if we didn't learn anything from 2016, like, and then we saw it happen in 2020, be able to manipulate that election. But I just don't understand where people's heads are. To the supermarket, and it hurts. Like I go through the supermarket and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe tinfoil is 16. That's ridiculous. Like a 4-pack of burgers is $28, but people are actually considering voting for this administration. Really insanity. So I'm not sure if my next guest is here yet or if they're going to be logging on, but continuing on with
So, and he's not here as of yet. I'm monitoring.
Okay.
Guys, as always, I'm in the background everywhere. But yeah, as soon as he gets in, I'll give him a call and see where he's at.
Okay, that sounds great. So Jason Shepard is my next guest, and I am not an advocate for harm reduction. With fentanyl, there is no safe dose whatsoever. You can't take fentanyl. You try fentanyl, it's not a matter of if you're going to die, it's when, and I can go over so many reasons on that. So who's supposed to, if he doesn't make it today, we'll have him on next time, but there is a fentanyl test for people who are addicts, and you're not going to stop an addict from doing drugs. It's just this until they're ready to stop. So what we have is is Narcan. If you find someone who's overdosing, you can give them. Chances are you won't find them. You'll find them dead in the morning. But if you are lucky enough to find someone struggling with a poisoning overdose at all, I apologize. This is not an overdose. An overdose is when you take something and you know it's in the pill. But if you're taking fentanyl and don't know it's there, you're not overdosing. You're being. So the test that they have to test drugs.
Hello, Jason. Right, this is Eddie.
Oh, we can hear. We'll have.
Who's the creator?
They all have. I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys can hear the conversation. The fentanyl tests that are out on the market now, you have to liquefy the drugs, and so what that is doing is if someone or a pill, they have to liquefy it to test it for fentanyl. It has to be completely immersed and dissolved in liquid. Turning people that aren't normally into IV drug users into IV drug users because now they're stuck with the liquid. They don't want to put it through their stomach because their stomach will filter a lot of it out. What it's doing is causing IV drug use. So Jason Shepard has developed a new test that is actually more sensitive and will tell you a dose, I think 1 nanogram per milliliter, of whether or not there is fentanyl in a pill or a powder without diluting it. So it's not causing that IV drug use. And to me, that's huge because, one thing I've learned about drug addicts since I'm in this fight, even though my son wasn't addicted, my son died from trying something and, I didn't get to learn his lesson. But I have met a lot of parents whose children have struggled with addiction, and I will tell you that these children are loved. Every time you see someone on the street corner, point and say, look at, that person over there, there's a mother at home crying, hoping that their son can just recover, or daughter can recover and come home. So, you know, it is important. Even addicts do not deserve to die from fentanyl. Nobody deserves to die from fentanyl. If you don't know something's done. Remember in the 1980s, there was that Tylenol recall because 6 people died from cyanide being laced in Tylenol, and 6 people died. And Tylenol pulled millions capsule bottles off the shelf, and I don't think they came back for over a year. I don't think they ever came back to a capsule that wasn't a gel cap after that. But they came back for 6 pills. Meanwhile, you have children, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds. My son was 15 years when he died. 15-year-olds, babies. You have babies. Every day I see parents who are like, I don't know what happened. I dropped my baby off with their father for the weekend, and my baby died because it was on a surface. Baby puts their hands in their mouth after touching a surface. And you only need 2 salt grains of fentanyl to die from fentanyl. And so I'm watching all these people, kids dying of, fentanyl poisoning, and just a tragedy. We have.
So, Anne, just got word back from Jason, and he is somewhere where internet will not allow him to log in to the podcast.
Okay, no worries that was possible. But anyway, Jason does have the fentanyl test. I want to talk to moms who have teenagers before I log, because my son would still be here right now if he wasn't deceived into taking a pill that was Percocet. My son wanted, he was at a new school and he wanted to make new friends. He met these kids. They were very popular. He's from a private school. He was at a new school, a couple thousand people in the school. He wanted to be the center of attention. He came from a school that there were only 40 kids per grade. And, he was well known. But at this new school, he had to find his way in. He wanted the normal high school experience, is what he called it. And so there was a group of kids, and they definitely were the fun kids. And I know in a moment of peer pressure, my son gave in to what he knew and what we had many times to never, ever do. Never try a drug, never try anything that someone gives you, especially if it's a pill, powder, liquid, anything like that. Don't ever try any. Those are the ones that are deadly, and you never, ever want to go near anything like that. And he knew better. But, I'm not always there to protect him. And I thought he was strong, I thought he could handle the peer pressure. But I wanted to tell you that give this stuff to the kids. They speak your kids' language. They want a customer, even if it's only for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They want a customer. They stalk your kids. They get your kids to try something. And if your kid survives the first pill, if your child survives the first pill, within 2 to 3 withdrawal symptoms. Those withdrawal symptoms are bone aches, muscle aches, shakes, fevers. The worst hangover that you could imagine times 50. It's 50 times stronger than crack. So once your kids try fentanyl once, they're addicted. If they're going to die, it's when without massive intervention. So they stalk your kids, and because they have a groomer, like a mentality where they teach these kids, you can't tell your parents you've done something wrong. Your parents are going to be mad at you. They shame them, and they get them to do it again, symptoms. And that's why fentanyl and the drug dealers are so evil. So they've gotten your child hooked, and now they're trying to ease your child. And now your child is for the first time that they never wanted, just because they wanted to fit in for a moment. And fentanyl is that evil. And this is when you hear of kids dying in their beds, parents finding their kids in the morning. It's probably because they were trying to ease these symptoms. And the drug dealers will make money for a few weeks, and then they'll move on to the next victim. Most parents don't realize that that's how it's done. These drug dealers are no different than sexual predators, and every single one of them needs to burn. They should, that the key should be thrown away because they're evil people. But I will say this: talk to your kids about peer pressure, because that is something that I thought my son would never do, and I was wrong. And in a moment of peer pressure, my son tried something because he wanted to fit in, and it killed him. So I want you to sit with that, run role plays, run scenarios, and give your kids the courage and the strength to say no. I'm going to sign off. And after 2.5 years of not being on a podcast or not being on a radio show, hopefully I've gotten through the sticky parts, and we'll kind of ease up on this over time. But thank you for staying tuned, and I can teach you something, and keep your kids safe. And that's my goal. I'm on a crusade to keep your children safe. But thank you so much. Pleasure, and we'll see you next time.
We gather our strength at the break of day, from old maple flags that wave so high to the freedom we taste beneath the...
This is Bryson Gray, and you are watching The Patriots Prayer
On the Patriots Prayer Network. Thank you all.
The American mom, she's tough and proud. She raises her